back to America's Forum. I'm J.D. Hayworth.
I'm John Bachman, also sticking around with us, political analyst Dick Morris. Dick,
hey,
as always, great to have you here.
And it's time to put on that analyst cap, Dick, as we turn now to a special congressional election in Florida that could very well have national implications. $9 million in outside spending as attack ads from one side more than matched attack ads from the other. That was the lead up to Tuesday night's special election in Florida. Republican David Jolly defeats Democrat Alex Sink. Despite the presence of a Libertarian candidate, the loss is seen as a huge blow for Sink, who was regarded as the more experienced and better funded candidate. And many saw this House race as a critical test for Obamacare.
At the very beginning of this race, I broke with my own party on many of the Social Security and Medicare reform efforts. On November 7th, when I got in this race, I took a more independent streak than my own party because I said we have to do more to guarantee Social Security and Medicare.
You hear David Jolly right there, appealing to seniors. That was the key issue, seeming to hurt the Democratic side. Cuts to Medicare forced by Obamacare.
The national parties, there's a debate going on within both of them as to what set of issues should they strike upon in terms of trying to gain traction, right, in terms of upcoming elections.
That was the University of Miami political science professor George Gonzalez. So, was this race truly a national bellwether? Dick Morris, what's your perspective on this? Does this cast the die for November?
It has a lot to do with November. They're represented by Democratic senators who have either retired or are seeking re-election in states that Romney carried. Okay? Now, so if we win all 7 of those, the Republicans control the Senate. In those are all states Romney carried, and all but one of them are states McCain carried too. Now you have an election in a district where Obama carried it, both in 08 and in 12, and a Republican gets elected to Congress. A very, very interesting and significant bellwether as to how those other 7 states are likely to go. In addition to those 7, you have 5 or 6 others that went for Obama both times, but in which there were very significant chances of taking away a Democratic seat. 2 with open seats, Michigan and Iowa, and some with endangered incumbents, Colorado, New Hampshire, Minnesota, Oregon.
Now, when you look at this, some of these other races, Dick, the demographics in this particular congressional district skew heavily towards senior citizens, and the GOP and outside groups were very effective about talking about these Medicare cuts that were a result of the implementation of Obamacare. Will that be applicable in other congressional districts as well? Specific things, specific problems with Obamacare, laying it out for the demographics in that specific congressional district?
It'll be so much more effective because the cuts will have affected more Medicare recipients. These suddenly they'll find the closed sign in front of them, particularly Medicare Advantage recipients. And what the Democrats are doing is saying, hey, don't pay attention to the cuts we're actually making. Pay attention to the cuts we're telling you these other guys might make if we elect them.
Well,
not a good position.
That's a very tough thing to sell. And of course, we make a lot, as we do, about dominant parties per congressional district. But in this case, and this appeal in this seat won't be unique to this seat because the preponderance of 55-plus voters in virtually every district in America.
Well, yeah, and the preponderance of those who turn out in off-year elections being 55 and over, particularly now that their Medicare and the Obamacare, their health insurance, these vital things are on the line. Very rarely does American politics touch an issue that really affects people directly. The Vietnam draft was a good example. A huge tax increase is another example. The healthcare situation is, he's put everybody in play.
And Dick, help us kind of read between the lines on the Democratic response to this. We heard from DNC Chairwoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz saying, you know, this isn't really a loss. We were, defeated, maybe playing the role of the coach of the losing team, trying to pump up Democrats here. What do you make of that? That's an admission of defeat, obviously, but what are you seeing signaled from Democrats? Are they really concerned here?
I hope Debbie gets good at it, because she'll have to do it a lot.
Our old friend Phil Gramm used to famously say, 6 months is a lifetime in politics.
Yeah, sure.
What do the Democrats do? Is there anything they can do to reverse their fortunes the way things appear?
What they're trying to do is distraction. Obama talks about everything else these days but health care. HHS does his health care stuff. He's off on minimum wage, jobs for long-term unemployed, lowering the cost of colleges, increasing student loans. He's doing everything he can but health care. It's the politics of distraction. But the problem is that the reality on the ground of your canceled health insurance policies, which are now going to continue to be canceled because of the thing we talked about earlier, because of the blue states, being forced to pay high premiums, all that's not getting your regular doctor, all of that stuff is going to increase. And the reality on the ground will obscure the capacity of the president to dominate the airwaves. Obama has done a very effective job in the last month and a half of daily executive orders, and his poll numbers are the lowest they've ever been.
Now, we take a look at this situation as it has developed, and we hear a lot of talk from political analysts that the GOP is poised for another year like the year of my election, 94, or 2010. Do you see 2014 being like those two previous midterms?
Yes.
Just straight solid across the board, it's going to be, that means a Republican rout
Yes.
of the Democrats.
Yes.
Dick, I also want to ask if there's anything here that can kind of foreshadow what's
I don't
going to
mean to
happen.
duck the question.
What's going to happen?
It's just right on. Simple, succinct. Yep, we heard it.
What could foreshadow in the governor's race in Florida as well? We had Alex Sink, who ran against Rick Scott the first time around, and she was supposed to beat him. She didn't win that race. Now we have Charlie Crist running against Rick Scott. Charlie Crist was supposed to beat Marco Rubio in the Senate race. Well, Florida voters don't seem to forget how bad these candidates are when they come back for re-election. For election.
I don't believe, first of all, I think there's limited applicability to governor's races because different mix of issues. But in Florida in particular, I don't give Crist much of a shot against Scott because the flipping of parties, the switching of parties is so obvious. Everybody knows about it. It's so apparent. You don't have to do a windsurfer ad like they did on Kerry or a weather vane ad to show how he switches positions. Everybody knows that he used to be a Republican and then he became an independent and now he's a Democrat. And God said, if you disagree with Charlie Crist on the issues, wait.
And they'll change again, like the weather vane.
Regrettably, we can't wait around anymore. We thank you very much, Dick Morris. We want to hear from you. Participate in our discussion. Tweet us your questions at Newsmax TV, # America's Forum. Visit us at facebook.com/Newsmax and send your email comments to connect@newsmaxtv.com.
Have fun.
Richard, as always,